In the grand tradition of building late 40s Beatles fans talking about songwriting creativity in this session, which we seem to have a lot of today, and including Beatles lyrics in their titles, very pleased to introduce What Goes On in My Mind, Melodies in the Making, David Myhr.
Thank you very much. I remember watching a Traveling Wilburys documentary when Tom Petty was talking about how George Harrison would audition the different singers in the band, including Bob Dylan, Jeff Lynne, and Roy Orbison. And Tom Petty would say it was kind of intimidating to go in after Roy Orbison. And that's how I feel, not only with people like Joe Bennett, Phil McIntyre, but Benny Andersson in the building, talking about songwriting. Who am I to do that? Anyway, I'll do my best. In this paper, I will posit some epistemological methods for investigation of melody writing in solo songwriters. First, I will briefly touch upon some previous research, then I will give a little background on my own artistic research project. I will discuss some of the challenges in finding suitable methods for capturing the real-life scenario of writing songs for a full album. Finally, I will play a couple of videos giving you closer insight into my documentation and analysis methods. And as for previous research, John Sloboda suggested 4 methods of inquiry, one of them being examination of what composers say about their own compositional process. Unfortunately, we tend not to get a lot of in-depth information from interviews with songwriters. We heard Benny Andersson here today talking a little bit more than he usually gets the chance to do in media, so that was amazing experience for me. As I referred to the interview earlier today when I talked to Benny, he said in the Swedish paper Dagens Nyheter recently, I don't know how I do it, more than that it becomes what it becomes. I can't really teach something that I do not understand, can I? I listen to what I've done, and then sometimes I understand something, but I have rarely got words for it. So that's kind of the problem with number 2. Following Collins and Bennett, I argue that we can only explore the musical creative process in real time rather than after the event. In other words, number 3, live observation of composer during session of composition. David Collins, as Joe talked about earlier, has made studies with the purpose to track composers' strategies in real time in naturalistic settings and under a longer period of time. And he was experimenting with verbal protocols that are often called talk-aloud protocols, when the composer tells what he is doing at the same time as doing it. That's a concurrently reporting, but it can also be done retrospectively. The concurrent one running the risk of the observation effect, as Joe talked about earlier. Joe, by the way, is also assistant supervisor for my research project. Hi, Joe. Newman's self-study covers his own compositional process. Most of the data collection derives from composing that took place over a very limited time, 5 days. The data collection is done through self-observation, assisted by technology, his own autoethnographic writing, and the analysis is done through both computer-assisted analysis and textual analysis of think aloud protocol. And then we have Bennett. Within popular music, there are very few studies made, but in Joe's study on how collaborative songwriting teams within popular music work, he chose a partly autoethnographic approach in that he actively took part of a number of songwriting sessions that were documented by audio recordings. He also made interviews with both co-writers as checking out the existing interviews from other successful writers. From this, he made his analysis by triangulation. My methodological approach deals with the moment-to-moment events in the melody-making process, with an emphasis of musical detail and my own self-reflective observations. Apart from studying my own artistic practice, being an artistic research project, the idea is to let the actual artistic output be the core work of the thesis. It's an album called Lucky Day. That's me there, hidden. That's what 40-year-old bald guys have to do when they make their artworks. It's an album called Lucky Day, consisting of 10 new pop songs composed and recorded between 2013 and 2016. As you can see, quite a few of the songs are results of co-writes. But today's paper will mainly deal with the study of the compositional process when writing on one's own. So the research questions in my project are: what methods or strategies are used for coming up with new melodic ideas? How are ideas evaluated? For which causes are some ideas used, accepted, and others discarded? The broad methodological approach of this project is one of qualitative research, which in turn takes use of a combination of methods. Since the purpose of the study is to offer an insider perspective, the choice of autoethnography as a method was obvious. I am both the researcher and, as a practitioner, the object of the research. The project is limited to the study of melody writing only. By excluding lyrics as well as production aspects, I will be able to achieve a more in-depth analysis than I otherwise would have been able to. The study also excludes the processes behind melodies or melodic fragments that my co-writers brought in. Not that they are not interesting, it's just that my methodology doesn't allow me to come into their heads. Given the main artistic goal to produce an album's worth of material, my original criterion was that any song that ended up on the album was to be the subject of my case studies. Therefore, the data collection became quite a challenge, since I didn't know which songs were going to be included until the album was finished. Not until the last lead vocal overdub in a studio in Nashville could I be sure that the melodies were set in stone. Another challenge in the data collection lay in the fact that no physical artifacts tend to be produced, since the melody making process is entirely done by ear. No musical notation is being made, no sketches of melodic ideas or chords are written down on paper. The only thing that manifests itself in the physical world is the actual singing, playing, and if with a collaborator, a dialogue. I deemed audio or video recordings as the media most suitable for documentation, preferably video because of its capacity to show what's going on in moments of silence. My idea was that the recording device would act as a fly on the wall in order to avoid the observation effect. And I used iPhone, Zoom digital recording devices for both audio and video. This allowed me to feel quite free to work whenever and wherever I wanted during this 3-year period in a natural, organic, and spontaneous way. But I also felt the duty to document everything, the research duty to document everything. It almost felt forbidden to start singing in the shower or while driving the car because I wasn't documenting it. And in a way, it could be looked upon as a slight effect of the observation effect, possibly affecting my creative process. Those photos are taken during a co-writing trip I made to Los Angeles, Nashville, and New York in February 2015, which is an important part of the end result, but not in focus of today's paper. My logbook consists mainly of oral reflections with description about how I have experienced the songwriting sessions, what got me started, was there anything in particular I tried to achieve musically, and so on. And to follow each session with a post-session review, an immediate post-session review would have been ideal, but in a typical scenario where a session lasts for anything between half an hour and maybe up to 3 hours, I deemed it to be an overwhelming task, given the energy level after such a session, to start to make a review in the same length, another 2 hours, possibly more, given that you are supposed to explain the moments. So my solution has instead been to make a post-session review, not fully as immediate. It has taken place afterwards in a calm environment where I've been able to go into a more detailed level of describing and reflecting upon the moment-to-moment activities. I will now present 2 of the case studies where I was writing by myself, starting off with a song called "The Perfect Place" that I wrote in December 2013. Here we can see the musical notation of it. And as Joe pointed out over a beer yesterday, this is not the creative object, what we see here. It's just a post-hoc transcription of it, as opposed to in art music, classical music, where the score is often looked upon as the actual work. I will play you a verse and a chorus from the finished result.
If someday one can travel in time, I will be the first to decline. 'Cause even if the future's brighter, you are in the now. The perfect place for me is any place where I could be with you. The perfect thing to do is anything, as long as we be two. The perfect way to go is any way.
Okay, so now I would like to give you an insight into how the melody was born. In this coming quite embarrassing clip, I've used the method of captioned video in an attempt to make visible for the viewer what's going on in the head of the composer, as well as explaining moments of silence and reflection that would otherwise be lost in the observation. I was sitting in my studio space and I had decided that on this occasion I would try something that I often recommend my songwriting students to do, namely to write from the title, begin with the title. So I thought I'd better try it myself. And we will find that piece here. Have fun. Too many things. Perfect place. So I found the title in my own notebook. It's just a perfect place. It's just a perfect place. It's just a perfect place for frickin' Turco to do. A perfect place. A perfect place for you to get love. A A perfect place is all I need. The perfect place for you is I to get a love. The perfect place. The perfect place. The perfect place is all. The perfect place is all. The perfect place. The perfect place. The perfect place is all I need. The perfect place. The perfect place. The perfect place is all I want to know. And all I love to know. The perfect place is all I call to know. Hello, it's not the bright. The perfect place is all I love to know. I can't get out control. The perfect place is all I love. The perfect place. Here I'm getting excited, as you can see. I hear symphony, a pop symphony in my head. So that was the key moment of kind of discovering how that song's hook should go, and to try to organize and try make sense out of all the data I've collected, I've turned to the software Transana, which facilitates qualitative data analysis by making it possible to make time-coded transcription from audio and video clips. I have two transcripts. One is the descriptive one, where I write down summary presentation about what's going on, focusing on musical actions and an objective stance. And in the analytical transcript, I try to be more personal, and I write down immediate reflections and things that I didn't know at the time, but I know now that here I sing the chorus for the first time. I wasn't able to know that at the time. And the idea is to use this material and start coding and tagging, drawing a little bit from grounded theory, and hopefully be able to make a narrative analysis in a later stage. And I will present you one more song, the title song from the album, and I will first play you a little bit from the finished result. And then it starts like this. It was recorded in Nashville, so it obviously had to include some pedal steel. Oh yeah, I have a transcription of this one as well.
On the street, all alone, no big plans, no place to go. Keep thinking something'll come my way. I can't go home, no one's there. In the park there's lovers everywhere, but still waiting for my lucky day.
So I was attempting an AABA song, but I wasn't happy with the B part I came up with, so I invited my producer Brad Jones to a co-write, but in this early stage it can be looked upon as a solo songwriting session. And as you can see, I didn't work hard on getting the right angle. It wasn't important. And here you can see in real time how Transana time codes my analytic thoughts over there, my description over here. The first note came about just because there was a cap on the guitar, and I was inspired by the fact that I could just let go of the finger on the third string, and one thing led to another.
When you look at me, you see all that.
This was a big break when I found this fourth chord. 1 minute. And sometimes there can be like 49 iterations of an idea. That's why I call it the making and shaping of melodies. It's a lot about finding something and then kind of mold it into something memorable and something that, in the best scenario, gets me that feeling that Benny was describing earlier today. Some kind of physical feeling that, ooh, this is good. In this case, the genius of David Myhr created da 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 da. Isn't it amazing? All right, so I will say thank you on that note.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of time for questioning.